This NFL Week 18 Player Props Edition and Player Contract Incentive episode of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Wilson, it as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. NFL Week 18, the finish line for the NFL regular season before we do get into the postseason for the National Football League. Still, of course, a lot to be determined here in the final week. The number one seed in the NFC up for grabs. Playoff seeding, of course, in both the conferences as well. So a lot, at least from a team perspective. But of course, everybody loves NFL Week 17 and Week 18 when we're talking about player props, because every talking head now is talking about all the player incentive and contract bonuses that needs to be unlocked. Of course, we'll cover that here on this episode. Get our thoughts on that, on how we are going to attack it. We'll go through we'll go through the list of the players that do have those bonuses that they need to unlock and what they need for this week to earn those bonuses. And we'll talk about all that. Of course, give you our player props, touchdown scores, and then we'll talk about honorable mentions, and then we'll wrap it up with best bets here. But of course, joining me on the final episode of the regular season, at least for the 2024 year, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man?
We've made it to the last week of the season, and it feels like earlier, maybe on Monday this week, we were doing divisional previews. It's flown by, man. Tons of fun, tons of winners given out. We've also given out some losers, but overall, I think we both pretty profitable, and it's been cool, man. I really, really enjoyed it. We're not done, like you said, but this is the last season, last week of the regular season in the NFL for this season. So super excited to be here as always. The incentive shows are always pretty cool, to see which ones we can nail and see which players really going after it. So I'm excited to jump into it with you today, my man.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of years ago, I would say that this wasn't such a hot topic with player, contract incentives and those bonuses that they do get. But now, it's just all over gambling Twitter. And, sometimes I think now we got to be a little bit cautious about how we do attack some of these contract bonuses, because I think all of us noticed that the books are a little, I don't want to say hesitant's the right word, but a little bit slower this week of posting those player props this week. But also the fact that we don't know, and honestly the books don't know about who's going to be playing, which starters are going to be playing in these games. They're kind of just waiting for the coaches to come out and say, hey, ABC is going to be playing first half, and then we'll rest our starters in the second half. A lot of scoreboard watching this season. So as exciting as it is to talk about these player props for Week 18 and the player prop incentives as well, that we also have to be smart about it and which ones we do attack, because I mean, there are games here where it's a little bit baked in, and we'll talk about that as we kind of progress here when we talk about these player bonuses for this final week of the regular season. But before we do get into it, just want to remind everybody to download the SGPN app. Like all of our picks and pods on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, it's absolutely free to download wherever you do get your apps, whether it's a Google Play Store, whether it's the App Store. Just do us a favor, download the SGPN app. Again, like I mentioned, it's completely free. All right, Chris, so let's get into the player prop bonuses here before we do give our player props out. I'll mention the hot ones, or the ones that are, I guess, attainable, or maybe the ones that have the most money involved for these players. And one player we've talked about a lot has been Mike Evans, and I think that's the biggest one coming into this week. He Number one is looking to continue his streak of 1,000 receiving yards for every single season that he's played in the National Football League as a professional player. He's, I believe, 85 yards away from that. 82 or 85, I think, is the number. I'll double check.
85.
That. 85 is the number. And then 5 receptions also, which would unlock him $3 million for this season. And, of course, keep that number alive, or his streak alive, I should say, for his career. So, I mean, this number it opened up, I want to say, around 93 and a half. Chris, it's all the way up to 100 and a half here. I was heavy on Mike Evans last week just because, number one, we knew that last week he needed 180 some odd yards. And it was just a matchup last week for him as well against the Panthers, right? I mean, he had 90 plus receiving yards. He got 2 touchdowns in the game, got the receptions there as well. So I was heavier on him last week. Get your thoughts here on Mike Evans, if it's still playable at this number for you at 100 and a half as it's moving to a consensus, or is there a different way that you're attacking Mike Evans player props here? But what's your thoughts here on Mike Evans for this week against the New Orleans Saints? So again, let's remember, Tampa needs to win this game as well to clinch the NFC South division and punch their ticket to the postseason.
So we got a New Orleans Saints team coming into town. Tampa Bay was at home last week as well, right? I think Carolina came to Tampa Bay. Yes, so sir. No travel. Only needing the 85. He's going to be cool, if he finishes with 86 and not at 100. We got to keep that in mind. So I think the first thing I want to, as I'm kind of processing it all in my brain, I'm thinking, first and foremost, how smart you were to get it last week when you had a really good matchup. Now, it's not like the Saints are some world beater 1985 Bears defense out here, and they are 14-point favorites in this game, which I think that, we talk a lot about Dave Canales kind of resurrecting the career of Baker Mayfield. I think another very, very key contributor has been the reliability of somebody like Mike Evans. It makes your job a lot easier. We could just float the ball out there to him and throw the jump balls to him on some of those go routes, knowing that he's going to get open, knowing that he's consistent, knowing what his work ethic is like. And they do have a really, really good chemistry. Now, could that lead to some double teams from the Saints because they're, trying to go in here and slow him down? Absolutely. I am thinking that as well. I don't know if I get to the number, with it moving up to 100. Now, can he go out there and get 100? Yes. But is there a lot of wiggle room in between? And, by the time our listeners who are going to listen back to this on recorded podcast form, by the time they get to the number, it might be even worse. So I'm not on Mike Evans this week, but for $3 million and 85 yards and 5 receptions, it's really, really hard for me to pass up on him, So, I'm not going to give too much of an endorsement to play it or not to play it. I think I'm more neutral, but I love what you did last week by attacking him against that Carolina defense, understanding that he was going to need to get a lot done in 2 weeks. So why wait until the last week? And I like what you did with him last week.
Yeah. So last week in our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy, they do a great job of offering first half projections as well. And I took the first half projection last week for Mike Evans as well. And that one got to the window there as well. Right now they have him listed at 51.5 in the first half. If you want to look at that for his receiving yards, but the head-to-head history against the Saints in 20 career games here has been good. I know a lot of that has been with, the battle between him and Marshawn Lattimore. Obviously, he's not there anymore with your Commanders now there, but Chris, it's just, he's played 20 career games against the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to let you guess on how many games he's had in those 20 games of at least 90 yards or more against the New Orleans Saints. So 20 career games for Mike Evans against the Saints. How many of those 20 games has he had 90 or more receiving yards against the Saints?
I'm going to guess there's not that many. Maybe 20. Let's say 4 or 5.
He's had 2, and this was back. He had 1. Yeah, 2. So one career game, or one game, I should say, back in the 2018 season, he had 147 yards. That's the only game in his career against the Saints where he's had 100 plus. And then he had a game where he had, I think it was 97. This was back in 2016. But over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, he hasn't had 71 or more receiving yards. And again, like I mentioned, a lot of that is head-to-head, when the Saints were more competitive. They had Marshawn Lattimore. We know the battles between those two teams. So personally for me, Chris, I'm going to stay away as well. I got mine last week. I'm hoping Mike Evans gets it because I love Mike Evans. Great competitor, great receiver. But I think that because his number is right now moving up to 100.5, there's a possibility of a nice middle there for you if you want to do that. Or if you're a same game parlay player, or those all players, if you want to do like 80 plus for Mike Evans and you parlay with somebody else, you can do that as well. All right, let's keep it moving here. Kind of rapid fire through that. I think that was a big one that we needed to talk about. The one I will be playing, Chris, here is going to be Courtland Sutton for the Denver Broncos. He needs 82 receiving yards for $2 million for this upcoming season and his contract incentive bonus there. Right now, for Courtland Sutton, I want to say this number opened up around, and it was available around 64.5, 66.5. Right now, you could get a 65.5. And if you could double check this one for me, Chris, on BetMGM, 65.5 I see is a number, but I'm seeing 71.5 at Bet365 and 73.5 at DraftKings right now. So Courtland Sutton and the Denver Broncos, they take on the Kansas City Chiefs this week. Kansas City already came out and said they're going to be sitting most of their starters. They really don't have a lot to play for in this game. So I would expect Courtland Sutton. The Denver Broncos need this game as well if they want to keep their playoff chances alive. So I don't think they'll be forcing the football too much to Courtland Sutton. If they can get the dub and also get Courtland Sutton to those 82 plus receiving yards, hey, that would be absolutely fantastic for them. But I think at the number of around 71.5 right now, I would definitely play that for Courtland Sutton. He's had some good success against the Kansas City Chiefs in his career. He's had a game of 87 receiving yards. He's hovered around 78, 79. But I think that, that maybe one final catch where if they are winning this game and that he needs to get the yards, I think that he can get it done here. But 71.5 is the number right now over on Bet365. I do like that for Courtland Sutton this week for $2 million to get to 82. So there's a nice opportunity that if he does get 75, 79, 80 yards, maybe just fall short of that 82 number, we still cash on this prop here, Chris.
Yeah, this one, I think everything kind of aligns him. If you got a team that, this is the way I see it, that you got a team that needs to win, right? You got a team that is not going to be playing super hard on the opposite side of the football with the like the Kansas City Chiefs, like you mentioned, they've wrapped up everything that they need to do. So you got a team trying to make the playoffs. You also got a defense, that does what? Well, they stop the run, right? Yeah. If the Chiefs have any kind of deficiency, it's the ability to be able to slow down the pass, I think, at times. So could definitely see him getting the ball a little bit more. The other thing that really jumps off the page of me at this one, with Courtland Sutton is he needs over the number, right? Like he needs 82. So getting to the prop is not even going to be incentive of 500,000 for him. So he needs to get to the prop and over the prop. So 71.5, you mentioned, that you asked me to double check the number. That is the number. I see 70.5 available on Hard Rock, which is super limited to most people, but 71.5 is the lowest number at minus 115 on Bet365. This is already up to 76.5 over on Caesars. Yeah. So definitely something you want to probably get in early, but keep in mind that, he needs 82. So I do like this one. Feels like all the stars kind of aligned on Courtland Sutton this week. I like that one a lot.
All right. And then I'll say that same game, DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he'll get this. He needs 9 receptions, 140 yards for 250,000 each, but he also needs one more touchdown as well, believed to get 250,000. So keep an eye out for DeAndre Hopkins. If he does start the game, that's a possibility that they do want to get him the football. Carson Wentz will begin the start here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Let me rapid fire a couple of more here. Get your thoughts on them. Tony Pollard is another one. They play the Texans this week. He needs 83 or more rushing yards to get 250,000. He also needs 2+ rushing touchdowns for another 200,000, Chris. And then the other one that did catch my eye was going to be, and I want to get your thoughts on this one, was Kyler Murray. He needs 50 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown as well for 750,000. Those are the ones that stuck out to me. Of course, there are some more we can talk about here as well. But get your thoughts on Tony Pollard this week. I know he's dealing with an ankle injury. They go up against my Texans, whose rush defense has been atrocious to say the least. And then also Kyler Murray, if he can get 50+ rushing yards and a rushing touchdown here, Chris.
Yeah, the Pollard one, if I kind of want to, just kind of see what's going on with his health, but in my estimation, 250,000, if to go out there and get 83 yards, that'll make your leg feel better afterwards. Maybe you endure a little bit of pain in this one, and you say, you know what, we got all summer to get this leg done, and get it healed. Tennessee Titans will not be playing another football game this year, so I can see him kind of. Trying to get there against your Houston Texans. I think it's also pretty telling that the Tennessee Titans are even favored in that game. So Tony Pollard should do a lot of the work there. I like the 83 yards. Like you said, your Texas defense has not been that great against the rush. And then you also mentioned Kyler Murray, 750,000 at the crib this week against the San Francisco 49ers defense. Not that they can't do a great job of containing quarterbacks, but Kyler Murray, we know if that offensive line is blocking, plays can kind of open up. I think we see him take off here. I think we see him take off a couple times here. Not only to go out there and try to get the incentive, but also to win the game for his team this week with the Arizona Cardinals being a 4.5-point favorite. So I actually like both of those. I like the Tony Pollard one, needing 83 for 250K. And I do like I like the Kyler Murray one rushing touchdown, 50+ yards for 75. I mean, that's almost a whole nother $1 million. I think both of those guys will get up for this one, even with the Tony Pollard injury to his leg.
Kyler Murray quickly here against these San Francisco 49ers has played 7 career games. He's had 50 or more rushing yards in 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he had one game last season where he had 49 in that game. So it could have been 5 out of 7 if he would have gotten one more yard last season. But I think that this is definitely the possibility here for Kyler Murray, especially with a running back room, Chris, that is injured, right? James Conner, I think, is done for the season. They elevated Michael Carter Jr. He had a pretty good week last week, but I think that Kyler Murray, I think definitely for 50+ rushing yards here and a touchdown is in the realm of possibility against the San Francisco 49ers. All right, Chris, before we continue the conversation here, I mentioned Underdog Fantasy. A great time to get down and get an account with Underdog Fantasy because we're talking about these player incentives and they have the fantasy projections up, but they have honestly one of the biggest menus of all sports, and it's just a lot of fun playing on Underdog Fantasy. Last week I had a lot of success. We talked about the Mike Evans. That was part of my entry there as well for Underdog Fantasy, but they're always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. Today I was on Underdog Fantasy. They have a no sweat NBA entry that you can put together from 2 to 4 picks there. So they also have the Underdog Playoff Best Ball, which is now live. The Gauntlet Tournament has $2 million in prizes up for grabs for just a $25 entry. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, so much more. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Stay tuned at the end of the episode. We'll put together our Underdog Fantasy entry for the final week of the regular season. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure that promo code MACHINE. Chris, a couple more we can touch on here. I think Derrick Henry needs one more touchdown to unlock 250,000. He is minus 250, I think, is a number for him to score a touchdown this week. They are close to a 3-touchdown favorite.
Would you bet that? We're getting into the boxing odds of things. Would we bet Derrick Henry at 1 touchdown for $500K with those odds? Would we do it?
I think so. I think he gets it done in the first half. I think it's a good piece that if you want to put together in a parlay. I think it's definitely a possibility. I don't think it's possible. I think he gets it done. He gets another touchdown. And then one more I'll mention here, Chris. J.K. Dobbins. He needs 58 rushing yards to get 150,000. I think his number was around 71.5. But they are going up against the Raiders this week. They're without Max Crosby. I think this is a good opportunity for J.K. Dobbins to. I know coming back from the injury, but an opportunity for him to get the bonus here, but also just get the rust off and get him ready for the postseason there as well for the Chargers. And the Chargers did come out and say that they are going to be playing their starters in this game here, ramping up for the postseason. So that was another one, J.K. Dobbins, Derrick Henry. And then yeah, I'll get your thoughts on those. That's what I have, and if you have any others that you you have your eye on, Chris, and then we can get into our player props.
No. I think you did a really good job. I mean, if I don't think I had any, I think you took everything I had in my notes.
I think those were really the main ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were the main ones. That's what I had in my notes as well. You mentioned J.K. Dobbins, 58 for 150. I think that's obtainable for him in the Los Angeles Chargers against the Raiders, against that Vegas Raiders defense. Them coming in as 4-point favorites at Gillette Stadium this week. And then you also mentioned, who else did you mention? You know,
It was J.K. Dobbins, and the other one was, who did I just say?
Did you say Mixon?
I didn't say Mixon. I'm trying to figure out if the Texans are going to have their starters out there like the entirety of the game. But yeah, I'll let you take away from Joe Mixon. I'll just kind of went over my head right now about what the other guy was. But I'll mention one more once you're done with if you have any thoughts on Joe Mixon.
No, not really. I mean, 107 is a lot. Could he go out there and absolutely get the job done? Tennessee is, in my opinion, a little bit better against the run than they are against the pass. Better against the run than they are the pass. So I'm interested to see what happens with your Texans as well. I haven't really read up too much on that one to feel like I want to be able to make a choice in that one. But like I said, 107 yards it's obtainable, but it's not going to be super easy, of course, on the road. So I don't really have any, I guess, burning thoughts on Tony Pollard. I'll throw that one back to you.
Last one I'll mention, it's a big number, $2 million each for Geno Smith. He needs 185 passing yards, and then a Seattle win that'll get him $2 million each. So if you want to, same game parlay that one, and then I did see also that our guy we've talked about a lot, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He needs 5 receptions to set the franchise record for receptions in a single season there. I did see that number was at 5.5. So if you want to put together a same game parlay of Seattle money line, Geno 200 plus passing yards, and then over on JSN's receptions, I think that'll get you some plus odds. Maybe not be, I don't think it'll quite reach 2-1, but I do think there's an opportunity that does happen this week here for the Seattle Seahawks. So again, the information's all out there, guys. Those were the ones that I did want to mention, and what me and Chris will probably be looking at playing this week. But again, be very smart, be very cautious, because I've had a lot of conversations with other people that that market now may have just been saturated now, and I think the books are also catching on to all these lists that are out there, and especially when a sports book is putting up their own graphic of the player incentives, that's a huge red flag for me when it does come to these contract incentives here. All right, Chris, let's get into our player props here for official player props for NFL Week 18, the final week of the regular season. Why don't you lead us off? Where you taking us for your first player prop?
We're actually going to one of the games tomorrow. We're going Cincinnati-Pittsburgh tomorrow, 8:00 Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. And we're taking, which quarterback do we want? We want Joe. Give us Joe. Joe Burrow up and over his pass completions here. The number comes in at 25.5. It is a bit juice. I see it like minus 125. But I'm thinking this is a game where he probably completes about 27, 28 passes. It opened 25.5. It's quickly been bet up to 26.5. Well, we got bet up to 26.5 and back down to 25.5. But I'm looking at Joe. Of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sorry, not the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cincinnati Bengals need this game. They need to also a lot of other things to happen as well. But their playoff hopes aren't quite done yet. So that was one of the things that was a driving factor, knowing that Joe Burrow is going to go out there and play, one of his best games and put his best foot forward to win a game. Looking at Joe recent numbers, we know that this is the team that passes the ball an absolute ton. He had 39 pass completions last week against Denver. He did have a game in there against Cleveland when he threw the ball just 23 times, but that was because they didn't need him to throw the ball. That game was absolutely ran away with. And then 7 straight weeks before that, this dude has had 26 completions or more. So you love to see that. Tennessee, Dallas, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Vegas Raiders, the Philadelphia, I was about to say 76ers, Philadelphia Eagles, up and over this number in every single one of them. This is a team that passes the ball last 10 games, 66% of the time. His completion percentage is just south of 70%. Passer rating of 109 last 10 games. Like, he's doing a really good job getting the ball out. Completion percentage is really, really good. And I'm looking at that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. If they can be susceptible to giving up the passes, I think that they'll try to do a really good job of limiting the big plays to Jamar Chase and letting him take the top off the defense. So we'll see a lot of, underneath stuff. Not that he won't air it out and get the ball deep down the field a couple times at least, but I think that they try to do a good job of kind of, keeping the passes short and concise, which will only lead to him having even more completions, So we're going to start this thing off with smoking Joe Burrow up and over 25.5 completions.
Yeah, I mean, I really honestly can't talk you off at taking overs for Joe Burrow. I think also the fact that their number one running back, Chase Brown, suffered an ankle injury last week, so his status is a little bit up in the air. I think that he's going to try to suit it up, but number one, short week, when you're dealing with ankle injuries, it's tough. So I don't expect a lot from Chase Brown in this game. At least running the football, which just kind of tells me that, Joe Burrow is going to be on the shoulders of Joe Burrow. And again, look, the offensive success over the past several games where they've had this little winning streak of 4 games in a row, it's been Joe Burrow throwing the football, getting the completions, getting the attempts, and getting the passing yards as well, right? So I like the completions number. I think he has another game where he throws for 300 plus yards in this game. He's had 3 straight three straight games against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he's had 300 or more passing yards in those games, 338, 355 earlier this month, or I should say last year, December 1st, 2024, 309 passing yards in that game for Joe Burrow. 8 straight games as well, where he's had 3 or more passing touchdowns for Joe Burrow. So I think, it'll be a lot of Joe Burrow. I think he leaves it out on the field, trying to get his team the victory in this game. All right, for my quarterback prop here, I'm gonna go with Baker Mayfield on his passing yards here, Chris. I know we talked about how great Joe Burrow has been. I think that Baker Mayfield has just been an absolutely fantastic job this season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm looking at his passing yards to go over the number. This number opened up around 246.5. Played it at 250.5, but I like this all the way up to 275.5. The current number right now that we'll grade it at is going to be at 255.5 for Joe Burrow. For Baker Mayfield. So, last week we saw what they were able to do against the Carolina Panthers, but I mean, you just look at the numbers for Baker Mayfield. Last 4 games in particular, 288 or more passing yards. 295 against the Raiders, 288 against the Chargers, 303 against the Dallas Cowboys, and he had 359 last week against the Carolina Panthers. He's had a success against the Saints in his career as well. Looking at those numbers for Baker Mayfield against the New Orleans Saints. Let's see here. So earlier this season, he had a game where he threw for 325. Last year, he had a game where he threw for 309. And I think, again, it'll just be on the shoulders of Baker Mayfield to really guide this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, who, again, win and you're in. You clinch the NFC South division. So I like Baker. Weather's not going to be a factor in this game. They're obviously playing in New Orleans. So I like Baker to get it done and guide this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team to a NFC South division title here, Chris. So we'll get at 256.5 over for Baker Mayfield this week.
Excellent farm. Double digit, 2 touchdown home favorite. Joe this you got me calling him Joe now. Baker this season, up and over the number. 10 of his 16 games so far, 4 straight games, 4 of the last 5. You look at him at home, it gets even better. He's played 8 home games so far this season, up and over 6 of the 8 games so far, with 5 of the last 6 going up and over. This is an excellent matchup. But you look at this New Orleans Saints defense, 27th in passing yards allowed per game. So a big game for Baker, probably leads to a big game for. Now I guess I'm talking myself into a little bit more of Mike Evans, but should be big games for both of them here against the Saints defense that doesn't have, like you said at the beginning, no Lattimore. He will be in DC, where we're grateful for him.
Yeah, I misspoke. I thought this game was in New Orleans, but in fact, like Chris mentioned, they are playing in Tampa this week. Are the Buccaneers? So I like it even more now, just because what Chris mentioned that he's been really good in Tampa. So again, the game is in Tampa. I misspoke there. They're not playing in New Orleans. All right, Chris. Before we get over to our next round of player props here, let me just tell everybody about mybookie.ag. You believe it or not, mybookie.ag has been around SGPN for years, but they have props for every game. They have a live dealer casino there as well. They even have an option for new early cash out options that are available on mybookie.ag. So all you got to do, head over to mybookie.ag. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Plus, they're also throwing a $10 casino chip for you as well. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's prop partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that also provides bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for money betting on money line, spreads, totals, props, all of it. You can build your own model, or you can copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or Rhythm can build a model for you. Now you can track props in the Rhythm app, NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Honestly, Rhythm, they have it all. This week, the Rhythm model does like, let's see here. They like Lamar Jackson over 1.5 passing touchdowns against the Cleveland Browns this week. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here. Next player prop, my man. What do you got?
Next player prop, we're going to another very good game, a decisive game that's going to determine a lot. We're going to the Minnesota-Detroit game, a Sunday night game, 8:20 Eastern Standard Time on Peacock, NBC. Looking at Jahmyr Gibbs here, if I like Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush attempt up and over 16.5, and it's just because he's been so consistent with this team. We always talk about Sonic and Knuckles. Shout out to Sonic and Knuckles and Shadow and everybody else that's a part of the crew. But Jahmyr Gibbs, this number 16.5 minus 115 is what I see. Some minus 120s out there as well. He gets a pretty difficult defense because it's not like the Minnesota Vikings are just going to roll over and lay down for him. But this dude's just been killing it. 8 of his last 10 games, he's up and over the number. He had a 30-yard rush last week on the road against San Francisco. So traveling back cross country in this spot typically does not bode well for most teams, but I think we're going to see a balanced attack like we always see from the Detroit Lions. And I think that he goes up and over the number. It's no real, great handicap. This is just something that he's been doing all season. He's a very explosive, dynamic running back that I think will have plenty of opportunities. He, of course, is rushing the ball a lot, getting 15 attempts per game for 81 yards, averaging 6 yards a pop, 37.1 yards after contact, and he's breaking a couple tackles as well. So we'll go Jahmyr Gibbs up and over his longest rush of 16.5, something he's done in not just 8 of the last 10, but 9 of the last 11 games that this Detroit Lions team has played in a very, very meaningful game with both teams fighting for playoff seeding here,
Yeah, I mean, look, Jahmyr Gibbs has been, we've talked about him a lot this season. He's been absolutely fantastic for this Detroit Lions team. And, he was my MVP on my fantasy team this year. So, they're going to need him in this game, obviously, for all the marbles. Don't remember a game of this magnitude. I don't know how many years, if ever. I mean, the #1 seed in the NFC on the line. The loser drops to the 5th seed. But yeah, I mean, you talk about anytime you talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, I will definitely co-sign that with you for sure. All right, my running back prop this week. I'll say one for honorable mention, but I also really do like it. I've already got to the window for it, but I'm gonna go Bijan Robinson. We talked a lot about Bijan this week, or this season, I should say. His number right now for his rushing yards in this game against the Carolina Panthers, sitting around 95.5. Starting to see 97.5s pop up as well, but it's on the move. So I wouldn't be surprised if this close to 100.5 by the time we get to Sunday for Bijan Robinson. Honestly, Chris, is just a fade of how bad the Carolina Panthers rush defense has been. 5 straight games, you've allowed a 100-plus rusher against them. 7 of the last 8 games, they've given up 100-plus rushing yards to a single running back. Earlier this season, Bijan had 95 against the Carolina Panthers. I know Tyler Algier in that game had 100-plus there as well. And in a game that the Falcons are going to need, and again, no disrespect to Michael Penix Jr., but who are you going to trust more in these spots? You're going to hand the ball off to Bijan and get those yards on the ground, or are you going to trust the arm of Michael Penix Jr.? I think you're going to hand this ball off to Bijan Robinson, and you take a look just at what he's done on the ground over the past several games for this Atlanta Falcons offense. It's been what we've expected Bijan Robinson to be. Last week he had 90 rushing yards, but prior to that, 94 against the Giants, 125 against the Raiders, 92 against the Minnesota Vikings rush defense that has been one of the better ones this season. And he had 102 against the LA Chargers there as well. He's had 22 or more rush attempts in 4 of the last 5 games. So if he does get close to 20 plus rushing yards in this game, attempts in this game here, Chris, I think he crushes this number. I wouldn't be surprised if he was close to 120 yards in this game here. So this one is my favorite play of the week here. Bijan Robinson over 95.5 rushing yards here, Chris.
Yeah, we talk about these lines being high for a reason here, but Michael Penix being back there, it makes sense that they're going to turn around, continue to hand him the rock. I see this all the way up to 97.5. So it's not like people are betting under. People are, fully expecting 100+ yards rushing in this game against Carolina. One of the you talked about it. One of the worst defenses that we've seen. He's done well against them in the past, and back at home to end the season makes a lot of sense for him to go out in style here. And I just also love that they're running the ball a lot. He's up and over the number 97.5 in 15 of his last 19 games. So a lot of love for Bijan here in this week, and I agree with it as well.
All right, let's get over to player prop number 3, man. What do you got?
We are going to the game, of the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. Jets trying to play spoiler. We did not think we would be seeing them. We would thought that we were seeing Jets are trying to make the playoffs, so they're trying to wrap up the number 1 seed or somewhere in that realm of possibility. Absolutely not. The Miami Dolphins are 1-point favorites in the cold streets of New York, which is typically something that we don't see, but they do need to win. The Jets will be trying to play spoiler here in this game. And I'm looking at Garrett Wilson in this spot. I like his reception prop. Up and over, the number is 4.5. There's a little bit of juice on it at -130, -135-ish. But Garrett Wilson has been the guy for Aaron Rodgers. I know, he got a shiny toy over there, but that's only opened it up for Garrett Wilson. We remember when, Devontae Adams first got there, they were talking about, asking Garrett Wilson, did he want to be traded? He kind of shut all that stuff down, and he's just balled. Last week, 7 receptions against Buffalo. 2 weeks ago, it was the LA Rams that he got at home. He ended up with 6 receptions in that game. So he's up and over this number back-to-back weeks, 3 of his last 4, 4 of his last 5. Just over the last 10 games, number that he's been absolutely crushing. 8 of his last 10 games, he's gone up and over this number. Recorded 7 receptions against the Dolphins earlier this season, averaging right at 5.6 over his last 5 games. So a little bit of meat left on the bone here. I think he's the reliable target here for the Jets against this Miami defense that's trying to play spoiler here. If I know that they haven't been great in no form or way, but for Garrett Wilson to go out there and get 5 receptions, I think that is on the bingo card for this week. So we're gonna go Garrett Wilson up and over 4.5 receptions, -130 here.
Yeah, you want to keep this guy happy because we're not sure what the future holds for both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams for the New York Jets next season. And there was some talk of, like you mentioned, the trade talk of Garrett Wilson. Is he going to be around for this Jets team next season if Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback? Not sure. But a lot of time we talked about this season when you see these wide receivers, I guess, complaining a little bit that they're not getting the football. Usually they're getting the football for the next several weeks, but the targets have been there for Garrett Wilson, like you mentioned, he's had 5 or more catches in 4 of the last 5 weeks as well. I think another opportunity where, like you mentioned, they are going to be trying to play spoiler here against the Miami Dolphins, who are going to be starting Snoop Huntley this week against the New York Jets here. So another great opportunity here for Garrett Wilson to really get the receptions in this game, whether it is going to be Aaron Rodgers full game or whether it is Tyrod Taylor that comes in maybe after that, who kind of gave this team a little bit of a spark against his former team last week in the Buffalo Bills there. So do love that one. All right, for my final one, Chris, I'm going to keep this one simple. It's probably a square play, but I'm looking at Justin Jefferson this week, Sunday Night Football. It's a big total, 56.5. Books are expecting a lot of points to be scored in this game, but in games, Chris, where we see it's for all the marbles, I think this is where the star players step up, and I think that's going to be Justin Jefferson this week. I'm not going to read the numbers and the targets that he does get. I mean, that just jumps off the page here. But the official number right now is at 91.5 for Justin Jefferson. He's gone over this number in 4 of the last 5 games. But Chris, what's really stuck out to me about Justin Jefferson is his numbers in Detroit in his 4 career games against the Lions in Ford Field. And I'll quickly read off these numbers to you. 4 games against the Lions in Detroit. 9 for 133, 11 for 182, 11 for 223, and 12 for 192 yards. So he's had 3 games where he's had 180 plus receiving yards. He's had all 4 games in his career against Detroit where he's had 130 plus receiving yards in this game. So I think Sam Darnold will look for Justin Jefferson often. We've talked about how bad this Detroit Lions defense has been throughout the season. They've struggled to keep opposing teams out of the end zone. I think we'll see Justin Jefferson have another field day, fast track in Ford Field. Weather's not a factor. I think this is going to be a big game for Justin Jefferson. So give me Justin Jefferson over 91.5 receiving yards in this game against the Detroit Lions.
Justin Jefferson doing a little grizzy out there, muting off, shaking his arms back and forth. I like it. Probably find pay dirt as well. You mentioned, I think this is definitely a stars will be stars type of game. I won't say too much because I agree with all the analysis on the play. I do have a touchdown score in this game as we transition. So yeah, we'll both agree that stars will be stars in this type of high magnitude type of game. If this is, like you said, for all the marbles. We know they went out and gave him the contract. We watched him on wide receiver. Do his thing. I like the look right here, for a lot for Justin Jefferson this week.
All right, so those are 3 player props each for myself and Chris. Let's get into some honorable mentions here, Chris. The one I did want to mention to you was Najee Harris on his rushing yards this week. This number was very, very conservative to me, but I do know that Jaylen Warren has taken over I guess majority of the snaps for that backfield for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Najee's had a lot of success in his career against the Cincinnati Bengals rush defense or lack thereof. Just the last 4 games for Najee against the Cincinnati Bengals here, Chris, he's had 70 or more rushing yards, 75 or more rushing yards in the last 4 head-to-head meetings, but last 4 meetings, 90, 99, 78, 75. So that's one I did play. Maybe I'm falling for the number here, but it feels like it's a buy low opportunity. Jaylen Warren is expected to play in this game. He is dealing with a rib injury. Not sure how much that will affect him in this game, but I feel like we see a heavy dose of Najee Harris in this game. If he's able to get 12, 13, 14 carries in this game, I think that he can get up and over this number of 45.5. I played at 44.5. It's up to 45.5, but I like this all the way up to 55.5. So that was the one I was looking at for this week. And then mentioned JSN over on his 5.5 receptions to set the franchise record, single season record for receptions. Tyler Lockett, I think, holds that record right now for the Seattle Seahawks, but I think he went up to him like, hey, go get the record. I want you to break it. So anytime, you have a fellow teammate saying that, I think there could be an opportunity for JSN to get that in this game here. So over 5.5 receptions for JSN, and then Najee Harris over 45.5 rushing yards, Chris.
You know how I feel about JSN. I will be on that one. I know he doesn't need the half, but we'll we'll play it at the half as well. Him needing 5 and, thinking that he can get 6 in a game that we expect to be. I mean, it's not like the Seahawks are a team that, passes the ball, 25% of the times anyway. We know that, Gino's probably going to give us some kind of quote, wrote us off. We didn't write back or something like that after he cashed the incentive bonus this week, both for, himself and NJSN. So I do think that's that one's in line. I'll be on that one with you as well. The Najee one, you mentioned the carries. If he can get in that realm of 10 to 11, he is averaging 12 over his last 5 games. Which if he's going to run the ball, I mean, we know how much Pittsburgh likes to run the ball anyway and control clock. They got a 45 to 55% run share over pass share this season, and he's averaging 4.1 yards per carry. So if he can get 12 carries times 4, that should line up with him going up and over this 45.5. If he can just get to his average in this game, it should land him right at about 48. So I think Najee is in a really good spot. I like both of your player props this week. I didn't find anything that I really wanted to get to. If I'm being honest, a little overwhelmed and flustered with all of the incentive base and the ones that I like, I really, really love this week. So I didn't really want to force anything else. I think a look at Joe this week. I'm probably not going to get there. His touchdown prop, I was wishing the line was more 1.5, maybe a little bit of juice, but 2.5. Plus 154 would probably be the biggest number that I've given out on the show this week. Now, can Joe go in and throw for 3 touchdowns? Yes. Has he had success against Pittsburgh before? Yes. Do the Cincinnati Bengals need to win this game? Yes. Do I think Jamar Chase scores a touchdown? Yes, but I don't know if it's going to be 3 passing touchdowns. You mentioned the injury to Chase Brown last week as well. All of those things kind of put me on the fence. If I look at the numbers real quick on Joe this season, his passing touchdowns in general are he's had 3. He's had 3. So he's been crushing this line. But we wouldn't say crushing. We say barely getting over. But it's been, what is this? 8 straight weeks, where he's had 3 passing touchdowns or more. He did it against Pittsburgh the last time that these two teams played. So he had 3 last week against Denver, 3 against Cleveland, 3 against Tennessee, 3 against Dallas, 3 against Pittsburgh, like I mentioned, 3 against the Rams. Chargers, 4 against the Baltimore Ravens, and 5 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Baltimore Ravens. So it's been 8 straight weeks. If he's on my list, plus 154. If you want to put a little sprinkle on it, I couldn't talk anybody off of that. It is down to 120 over on BetMGM. So we'll see if this team continues to come down. But the best number is available on Joe Burrow to go up and over his 2.5 passing touchdowns in a game that they absolutely need to win this week. So he was the guy that kind of was on my list, but I didn't quite get there with him.
Last one I'll throw out there, Kyler Murray rushing yards set at 31.5 right now. I think that's definitely going to be on my card as well. We talked about it at the top of the episode. He needs 50 plus in a rushing touchdown to get that contract incentive bonus. So I think that number is a little bit conservative, especially since he's done it more times than not in his career against the San Francisco 49ers. All right, Chris, let's get into touchdown scores for this week here. We talked about Derrick Henry. It's minus 240, but I think this would be the week that if you want to put him in a parlay, that he gets that one more touchdown for 500,000. I mean, it's Derrick Henry. You actually crushed this player prop, the touchdown prop early. That was a no sweat one this season. But Derrick Henry, I think, minus 240, but I do like that. DeAndre Hopkins needs 1 for the contract incentive bonus. I don't see odds on it just quite yet, but that will be something I'll keep an eye on to see if he's going to be playing this game. Couple ones more I'll throw at you. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is 1. He needs 1 as well. He's at plus 235 this week to get a contract incentive bonus there as well. Let's see here. Tony Pollard, I'll throw you out there as well. So a lot of mine this week will be based around these contract incentive bonuses, at least for the touchdown scores. Maybe baked in a little bit on those odds there, Chris, but I'll give you that. And then I'll go with Zach Ertz as well. He's a guy that we didn't really talk about in the section there for contract incentives, but he did crush it last week. He did get 2 touchdowns. but he's also another guy that needs another 2 touchdowns for a more contract incentive bonuses there for him. So those are the ones I do like this week. And then one more, the guy's been an automatic machine. Brian Thomas Jr., if you want to look at his yards again this week as well. But his touchdown odds at plus 135. So Derrick Henry, Brian Thomas Jr., DeAndre Hopkins when it does pop up, Zach Ertz, and I think that's it for me this week. What do you got, Chris?
Yeah, I think I like your list, Munaf. I like your list a lot. A couple of those guys I had circled as well. So DeAndre Hopkins is available, Munaf.
Okay.
And we get a nice price on him. He's plus 550 right now. I don't think that's going to stay there. It's so on BetMGM to score a touchdown, anytime touchdown for DeAndre Hopkins, plus 550. It looks like on BetMGM. DraftKings looks like I don't know if it just popped up, but they're plus 450 for DeAndre Hopkins. I love that one. Tony Pollard, I think the line only moves there. If it is, it's not plus money, but it's minus 125. And I think that he has a really good chance against the Houston Texans this week. I like that one a lot. Zach Ertz at 275. You laid that out perfectly as well. I'll go Jamar Chase, just because he's still plus money at plus 138 over on BetMGM. We know that he's facing this triple crown of receiving and, receptions and yards and touchdowns. He wants all of it, So he's also trying to tie the Bengals single season record, 2 away from breaking it. So I think some incentive for him to get there. He has 7 touchdowns in 10 games in his last 10 games as well. So Jamar Chase at plus money. Can't leave that off my card. And then I'll throw out one more that would be 2 more. Amon-Ra St. Brown minus 105. You mentioned the other star wide receiver. They respect each other a lot. Him and Justin Jefferson. He scored in 7 of his last 10 games. Key red zone target, of course, for the Detroit Lions. They're battling for the NFC North title. I think he'll be heavily involved in the passing game this week. So we'll go Amon-Ra. Love everything that you mentioned, Jamar Chase. And then I don't know if I'm gonna bet this one, but Lamar Jackson, just because of the MVP race, I think him kind of solidifying his case for that. You look at this Browns defense; they've given up 12 rushing touchdowns this season. We got a super dual threat quarterback, probably the most dual threat that we've seen in quite a while. He rushed for 119 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in his last 4 games. So looking at Lamar Chase. Your ones with Zach Ertz, maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit on all these, but DeAndre Hopkins at plus 550, I will definitely have some change on that. Tony Pollard at minus 125, Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 138, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at minus 105.
I'll throw out 2 more for you. Devontae Adams plus 145. We know Aaron Rodgers needs 1 more for 500 career passing touchdowns.
Forgot about that one. Yep.
Yeah, Devontae's had, I think, number 200 and number 400 from Aaron Rodgers for his career. But I do like that. And then we mentioned Kyler Murray. He's at plus 170 to find the end zone this week. So I'll throw those 2 more at you for this week. And Jay Jetta minus 130. So a lot of action for this final week here for touchdown scores here. So again, like Rocky will always say, bet responsibly. All right, Chris, last order of business here. Best bets for the week 18 games. And then we'll quickly put together our Underdog Fantasy entry to wrap it up here, man. Who are you going with your best bet?
I got to go with the guy that needs it, Not that Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't need to have a big game and can't get a 17-yard rush. Like I said, he has in 8 of his last 10 games. And Garrett Wilson has been crushing the receiving prop as well. But we're going Joe. They need it. They absolutely needed it this week. They need a lot of other things to happen for him as well. But I like it against Pittsburgh. He's had a really, some success against them as well. Recorded 28 completions, 100% hit rate versus their opponent the last time that he played. He's averaging just south of 30 completions over his last 5 games, with only 1 game, and that was against the Browns, where, that game was just so out of hand so quickly that he didn't need to pass the ball that many times. But I do think that Pittsburgh's going to, try to stop him from taking the top off the defense and settle for some underneath throws, which just lines up really, really well for him to go up and over his pass completions here. So we'll go Joe, smoking Joe, 25.5, up and over 25.5 pass completions this week, best bet week 18.
Love it. All right. For my best bet, I'll go quarterback as well. Let's wrap it up. Our best bets with quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield over 256.5 passing yards. Again, I think this is a game where he wills his team to that NFC South division title, led by him, Mike Evans. I think it's a good opportunity. He's done great at home this season as well for his passing yards. I think that he's going to continue that momentum into this game against these New Orleans Saints, where he's had back-to-back games of 300-plus passing yards against his team. So I'll take Baker Mayfield over 256.5 passing yards as my best bet. All right, last order of business here before we wrap it up. Underdog Fantasy entry here for the Week 18 games here. Let's see here, Chris. All right, so I think we'll throw in Joe Burrow. Well, not think, but we'll throw in Joe Burrow. You said his completions, right? Or his pass attempts?
Completions up and over 25.5.
All right, so we'll go higher, 25.5 completions for Joe Burrow. I'm going to throw in Baker for his passing yards, higher, 255.5. And let's see if they have. Do you want to go higher on Kyler Murray rushing yards, or do you want to go Justin Jefferson higher on his receiving yards? I'll leave it to you.
I think I like the spot, for Kyler. You talked about it being incentive based as well. I like that number. You said the number was 31.5 on his rushing yards, and he needs 50? 50. A lot of wiggle room in there. Yeah. So even if he finishes at 49, we cash the bet. He doesn't get an incentive, and we can be okay with that too.
Yeah, Underdog has it at 30.5, so we'll get a discount on 1 yard there. So, yeah, hey, we're going all quarterbacks for our entry this week. All right, so just to recap, Joe Burrow, higher 25.5 completions. Baker Mayfield, higher 255.5 passing yards. And Kyler Murray, higher 30.5 rushing yards. That'll get you a 5.64 entry. So all three of those are correct. For every $10 that you do put in, you'll get $56.40 returned for that Underdog Fantasy entry. Again, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you guys use our promo code MACHINE to get a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000, 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Whew. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of NFL Week 18. Talked about a lot on this episode. Player contract incentive bonuses, gave you our official plays for our player props, a lot of touchdown scores, and of course, best bets in our Underdog Fantasy entry here as well. It's been an absolute fantastic season here on the Propcast when we did Thursday Night Football episodes, obviously for the Sunday games as well. Like Chris mentioned, just felt like yesterday we were doing the division previews for our season-long player props as well, but it's been a lot of fun for this NFL season. Not quite done yet because we will be back next week to talk about the post-season, the NFL playoffs next week. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'll go back and we'll look at our season-long player props as well and see how those turned out for us for this season here. But Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we get out of here?
Not at all. Like you said, this is a very, very in-depth episode, so people got time, maybe listen back to it, because I think we did a pretty good job, just kind of providing the oversight of everything that's going on in this last week, from incentives to who we think is going to score touchdowns and all of those good things, man. We got a lot going. Hopefully we can finish out the last week of the regular season strong and come back next week and provide some more winners as well. So appreciate everybody for always tuning in, showing all the support. Best of luck this weekend. Like Munaf said, if it's a lot that you love, maybe, down the unit size just a tad bit so you can get spread your action up a little bit across the board. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll be back next week again. Bet responsibly this weekend. We talked about at the top of the show about the player incentive. So I guess my advice would be just be smart and careful with that, because again, it's all over the gambling space on the social media platforms there. So hopefully we'll be back next week talking about winners. Make sure you guys follow Chris over on the Twitter machine at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. Follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. More importantly, if you haven't already subscribed to the Propcast on YouTube, please go ahead and do so. And if you're listening on the audio version, leave us a rating and review. Definitely would appreciate it if you guys can do that for us. All right, enjoy the games this weekend for the final week of the regular season. Like I mentioned, we'll be back next week talking about the NFL playoffs. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.